Alright, so for this example, we have graph y equals 2 sine of 2x, and describe how the graph is related to y equals sine of x. So let's do the description first. So the 2 on the outside is just going to be vertically expand. And that's it. And then that 2 inside the parentheses, remember, is affecting the x values, therefore the horizontal. So horizontally, and then remember, everything with those x values is always the opposite. So if it's 2x, that means it's really 1/2, so it's compressing. And that's it for describing the relation. Now we can move on to the graph. So first thing I would do, like I've been saying, is the axis, which is y equals 0. And I'm just gonna graph it now. When it's on the axis, like the actual axis, I usually just add a couple extra arrows and then label it, because you usually can't really see it anyway. The amplitude, which is now different, is 2. The period is also going to be different. So remember, for the period, we take 2 pi, because that's what's normally in a period, and we divide it by our b value. And our b value in this case is 2. So 2 pi divided by 2 is pi. So 1 cycle will be pi, which means our scale, we take the period, which is pi, and we divide it by 4, because we've got 4 key points in a cycle. So our scale is pi over 4. So now what I'm going to do is get my coordinate plane set up and actually create that scale. So I'm going to go up by fourths. So we got pi over 4, pi over 2, 3 pi over 4, and then pi. And then we've got more space so we can keep going, but that is 1 period, so we're good. So what am I at? 5 pi over 4. 3 pi over 2. And 7 pi over 4. Hopefully I didn't mess up. 1, 2. I don't think I did. Okay, so I'm going to do the same, but for my other values, or my negative values. I'm doing a way messier job on this side. The Surface Pen sometimes is really awesome, and then sometimes not so much. Okay, and all that's left now are my x or y values. So amplitude is 2, so we need to make sure we are going to 2. Alright, so now that I've set up my coordinate plane and I graphed my axis so I don't forget to graph it, I've labeled everything I know, and I've set up my scale, I can now graph. So I'm going to look at what trig function do we have, and we've got sine, and sine starts on the axis, so I'm going to start at 0, 0, circle it, and label it. And up next is our max, which is going to be 2. Axis min, axis max. This can get very, I can't even think of the word. I can barely talk right now, guys. But it can get very, like, robotic, I guess. Like, you just get used to doing it. I'm sure you guys are thinking of the word I want to say right now. But basically, the point I'm trying to make is just be careful. Sometimes you get so used to, like, getting in the groove of the problem that you make a super silly mistake. Like, instead of, like right now I'm every 2, instead of going over 2, you go over 3 on accident, and then even though you labeled your scale originally right, it's now all wrong, and it's very difficult to give you guys partial credit on that. So now when I'm making my curves, they need to be curvy, and because I'm ending on a min and a max, they need to make sure they loop back so it doesn't look like it's going down forever, so that it symbolizes that these are going to keep turning and following the same pattern. Alright, so next, which is on the back side for you, is a u-try. So you guys are now going to try to graph y equals 3 times cosine of 1/2 x, and then I want you to describe how it's related to y equals cosine of x. So pause the video, and then I'll do the same. Alright, so let's go through the checklist. Did you say vertically expand? Horizontally expand, because it's 1/2. There's nothing that's adding or subtracting, so the axis is y equals 0. The amplitude is 3. The period, that's where you may have messed up, is 2 pi divided by 1/2, aka 2 pi times 2, if we multiply by the reciprocal, which equals 4 pi. So that means our scale is pi, so the scale is super easy. So just go up by pi. Did you graph your axis? Did you plot your starting point at 0, 3 because it's cosine? And did you circle and label your starting point before plotting all of your key points? If you said yes to all these things, then you nailed it. So that's about it. Today, all you guys are working on is really the dilations or expansions. So Monday, we will move on to phase shifts and frequency. So that's it.